Hello and welcome to my Sunday from. Today I just made some Asian food because I wanted takeout, and I have some orange lemon drink that I just mixed orange and lemon drink mix, and that's what I got. And then I have here um a chicken patty. I put lemon pepper on it and put some sauce. I made some sauce, and I have a cup of noodles that I made the sauce with, and I have stir fried green beans with onions. And so that's what I have. It's like really a good solid meal. Um I think it looks really good, but um I'm kind of proud of it because like I haven't had Asian food in a minute. Well, I haven't had Chinese takeout in a minute. But let's give it a taste. See what it tastes like. And I don't know how you guys spent your weekend. My weekend was pretty relaxing, and I've been crafting, and I'm almost finished. I should be done by Wednesday definitely. I shouldn't say tomorrow because I don't know how I'm gonna feel. And yeah, do you guys like katsu or I don't know? Is this anything near that? I hope so. That's what I was going for. Oh, I dropped the green bean. It's those Amazon frozen ones. I was gonna make Thanksgiving, but I decided not to. And this was gonna be one of my recipes for a green bean casserole. But I already have one. If you guys want to check it out, go ahead. Um, but yeah, I made everything kind of stir fried. Let's check out these noodles. They're just plain basic noodles and seasoned. Mmm. Dip it in the gravy. Mmm. Mmm. Yes, that came out good. This is actually a spicy chicken patty. I use it for everything from tacos to wraps, and I mean you name it. It's like $5 a bag, and this lasts me a month. Hmm. Kind of like ramen. I use ramen a lot. Mm. This is definitely like an example of an affordable meal that as an adult came to whipping up real fast because it's really, really budget friendly. It's simple and it hits on everything that I like eating. And I don't know, I find it like a treat instead of like dieting all the time. I like to treat myself. I'd say I like to treat myself like 95% of the time, to be honest, but that's how we got here. I don't know what time this will be uploaded, but Japan had a 7.2 earthquake, and Venezuela had there was an island off Venezuela that had a big earthquake too. And then California's having earthquakes too, like small little earthquakes. It looks like they're not huge, so you probably might not hear them, or depending where you're at. or, maybe even feel them, but definitely um there's shocks there. But Japan is like scared there's gonna be like a 10-foot wave coming, because like they're on tsunami watch right now. And um so yeah, hopefully nothing happens. And there's been some crazy weather, like these storms that, they're not huge storms, but they take everybody by surprise. And the most recent one I think was in Asia, and there was like almost 1,000 death toll from a small storm, not even a tropical storm. It was just like a storm that was swirling in the ocean, and it hit and flooded everything, and everybody was like not ready for it. And that's why I think in a municipality, like I remember, I don't mean to bring up bad stuff, but Duterte, he one of his initiatives was flood control, and instead they wanted him to do implement drug war. And I guess, it's like Western influence, but at the same point in time, it was necessary at that point. Um, and so he tightened up security, but because I think they fall back and don't continue their initial, you know, um, programs that they were starting. I think that's what kind of throws people off. And I think I think that the Philippines, like with those plans that him and his administration had, I think they can totally take those and use those, by the book. Like, and if they get that going, I think they could make a big impact in, you know, the Oriental waters, like the surrounding countries that kind of look to the Philippines as a trailblazer for flood prevention and disaster, preparedness. I think that's what we need a lot more of in Asia, disaster preparedness. Not only that, but the MET as well. I think we need more funding for staff there. And the more hands we have on deck, the more we'll be able to prevent things from occurring like this, because it was just a small storm. It wasn't like this huge thing that happened. It was just a small one. But the fact that they weren't ready, you know, there's so many things that I come from water. Like I live in Cincinnati. We have the Ohio River. My hometown is San Antonio. And I went through Harvey in Houston because I used to live in Houston. So I'm by the Gulf, right? So everywhere I lived, I know and understand threats regarding, you know, water coming to residential zoned areas. It's kind of could be devastating if you're not ready. There's so many things that we do, you know, there's so many things that we do that require, footwork. It requires everybody to participate. And without those type of things, without evacuation orders, without um, planning, which is zoned flood, everything, I think we're not gonna have we're not gonna have the life preservation, you know, mentality. We're just gonna kind of just float along, and it's not right. Asia deserves better, I think. And that's why it's disheartening to hear about, you know, Duterte and the court system and stuff like that, because I know there's so many people that do have that at heart. They do have great intentions for these countries, and and maybe it's not impactful at this moment, their countries, but they definitely deserve dignification, you know, when it comes to natural disaster or crisis or anything like that. And, I just want to bring awareness to these issues because, um, I know we like to show that on TV. Um, we like to clip the struggle in video, and we like to discuss the events, and I guess a storyline of maybe its impact in a personal level, but at the same point in time, people who are, you know, I'd say on the side of where you begin to implement and plan and prevent disasters from occurring and things from occurring, I think we need to be more realistic and more real and sincere about these events rather than clip farm. And, you know, for me, the whole thing's a tragedy. And that's what I don't like. It comes to a point where it's exploitation, even when we come to the government, where we're like, well, where's you know, our heroic geniuses, that have these plans already printed out. They already printed this stuff up, and it's disheartening to hear that somebody went and clocked him on his drug war. I think, I feel like the good that he did, the good that he brought, and the things that he wanted to work on for the people of the Philippines, that that is my Duterte. That is my hero. And and it's like you can't change my mind about that. When it comes to the people, it's the ones who are down bad that always will gain my respect. They'll always gain my praise. And I'll never ever back down when it comes to um, taking their back. Those are the people that I look up to. You know, because you get people like the lizard Claudia Scheinbaum, the lizard Fugazi. She locked up a victim of a mass shooting. Claudia Scheinbaum, they're having a civil war because she won't do a drug war. And that's what Duterte faced. Was he scared? Did he win? I like to say he won on many levels. Maybe it's not over. You know, and I sure hope somebody learns from this. The good, you know, prevail, and think twice before you ever you know take on a whole country, especially the Philippines. I think everybody was already fed up with you. And there's nobody that's gonna have their mind changed just because some coward came and clocked him. Because I'm sure there's very, very many people in back of him that want to continue the drug war in the Philippines. And you won't scare them from taking back their country. Facts. You won't scare Mexico from taking their country back. Facts. You won't scare us from taking our country back in America. 100% facts. And like I said, it might not just be a drug war. It might not be that easy. Sometimes, you know, people people get neglected, and and sometimes, there's like foreign influence, like I said. But at the end of the day, you know, I feel like your home is worth fighting for. Definitely. And I definitely think that there is a right and wrong way to do things. I definitely think that. But one thing's for sure, I know damn well, learning from Shine Bomb, it ain't sitting on your fucking ass and on that high horse talking about, well, some governors, some people who govern their countries just love the luxuries and gifts and all the wonderful mansions they live in. She still lives rent free, bro. Come on. Facts. 100% facts. Cut it with the bullshit. You live in a government owned building that used to be used as office space. So cut with the bullshit. Your rent is free and paid for. And you don't pay taxes on that home. And I heard she has a driver, so there's that. You know, so stupid. Some people just comment on the stupidest thing. Like, we can't read. We can't read you like an open book. You know? And some people are just tired of this whole Morena regime, you know? They're like, I don't know what Lobrador was thinking, but, you know, if we're gonna trash Shine Bomb, we're gonna trash Obrador Lopez too, because what the fuck is this shit? It's a crock of horseshit, you know? Having to fight for what Shine Bomb wants because nobody else is on board, that's, you know, that's baloney. That's a crock of shit. You know? But I don't know. I can't believe Fugazi locked up a victim. I think his name is Billy Williams. It just like hit me when I saw Mr. Peterson crying. I was like, why is this way blown out of proportion that we saw all the families come out? And their cousin and their mom and their brothers. Like, why did that have to happen? And it occurred to me, somebody's in jail, but they didn't do anything to cause the shooting. And I was like, this is blatant racism. Blatant racism. You know, I don't know what Fugazi was thinking running her city like that, but in America, that's called oppression. How'd you lock somebody up that got shot at? Like, doesn't make sense. And to run the sheriff's office and head the investigation in your mirror. It's a lot of corruption. It's obvious corruption. Yeah. And I was looking at the stats or BLM stats, you know, which is pretty bad. Even Houston barely had really incidents regarding, you know, officer involvement, you know, events. But these guys did. They had a lot. you know, because BLM wasn't what people wanted it to be. People wanted it to be against the uniform men and women of this country. That's why they took to the streets to act like hooligans. But you see this migrant protests, and those are probably the same type of people, just atypical, violent people who just want to destroy property, public property, government owned property. And that was a type of crowd that was uninvited. We literally had to call the cops on them. We literally had to push them out of the circles. We literally had to forcefully have them removed because they had weapons and bombs. They had plans to assassinate people. And those were the type of people that were thrown out, kicked out, banned from. And we had a nationwide APB out on these people. And one thing for sure we didn't have, and it was the support of the government. But at the same point in time, when you get a protest, it's a kind of like civilian level. Now we have this migrant protest where all the lizards come out. The women in power, and those podium girls that don't want to leave their podium because they're making a point. Not because they're making a difference. Those suckers. You get these people that want to hurt, they want to harm the public, they want to cause division, the Fugazis of the world. And it's like so sad. We live in this you know time where it's just so free. It's just so, it could be anything for you. You could go get an education at any age. You could vote whoever you want to. You could, I mean, just so many freedoms we have. We could say whatever we want and post videos about it. But there's some bad apples out there, you know? And they continue making a ruckus. But I was thinking the other day, why does Donald J. Trump, our second term president, current admin, have to clean up after Sleepy Joe? He doesn't. And Joe Biden, Joseph Biden, no. Former President Joe Biden, I feel like, earned the charges of trying to start a coup. I think he should be found guilty of starting a coup. Why do I say that? Because we're in December trying to clean up after him and we're not getting anywhere. This is not a regular schmegular degular dude. He needs to be found guilty of starting a coup, and Kamala Harris needs to be found guilty of the genocide. Even though Sleepy Joe co-signed it, she needs to be found guilty for those rockets she sent over to Israel. Her and her henchmen, you know, there's a point in time where it's like, we don't have to clean up after you. We shouldn't have to. And before we are finished, well, we should have seen justice, but we didn't understand exactly what you were e-pin signing. And while she was signing, he was so silent. It was obvious he was co-signing everything. So, that's where I'm at. I mean, we're in December, guys. In a month, we'll have been a year trying to pick up the pieces of what was once our country. A year, guys, a year. And we had so much expectations. We had so much work to do. And our president had all these things that he wanted to do. And I see the same thing that happened to Duterte um, going on here. And it makes me really, really upset. You know, these are our fucking heroes. The guys that were brave enough to fight for us. The guys that were not chickening out on residential areas. You see people who are like, oh, you know, excuse my language, but there was a time when people were like, fuck Compton, you know? There was a time, and, you know, and now I feel like there's an impact. There's an impact being made to neighborhoods like that, to neighborhoods like Price Hill, to neighborhoods like, you know, South Central San Antonio, you know? I feel like for once, as a people, we could shine, you know? For once, these neighborhoods that, you know, everybody used to talk shit about Brooklyn. Oh, do you guys remember Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens? It used to be just some smack talk. And now it's like, do you know who came from Brooklyn? Do you know who used to work in the Bronx? Do you know, that certain people made it out Queens that do this and that and this and that? And it's like, you know, it's like so, I don't know, it's just like feels so good, you know, that we're counted to. We're not disqualified because we don't come from some, you know, in people's minds prestige, you know. We just come from a place that's very relatable, but at the same point in time, it's still very much real for us where we live. And it's a very, I think, it's a lot of pride where you're from, no matter where you're from, it's a lot of pride, you know? And where you're from, it's a piece of your identity. And I think, you know, even if I was under a bridge pushing a cart, I'd be like, well, bitch, I'm under this bridge. I literally would care less. I'm under this bridge. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of times, you know, I guess I was outside, and we'll just use the metaphor theoretically. Yeah, come fuck with this bridge though, and I will. You know, it's like a lot of pride to say where you're from. It's just like part of your identity. You won't let nobody touch you. Come mess with me. Yeah, I'm that. I'm that girl. Not like, I mean figuratively. I don't mean like, you know what I mean? I don't mean like shit talking. I mean like literally, you can't touch. You couldn't touch, you know, my neighborhood. Like a piece of me. Like there's some things that, you know, are a part of your story. And every bit of your story, you know, is something that you hold near and dear to you because it's just, you know, it's just for you because it was your personal experience, you know? I feel like Stockton's our next neighborhood, you know. I feel like that was underserved. I feel like Stockton vice mayor, literally a YouTuber, Jason Lee, you know. There's so much going on in this world. There's so much good happening in this world. And like I said, you know, there comes a point when you're like, well, why are we still taking to task what somebody else did? And there's only one good, solid reason behind it. because this was planned. This was planned strategically, you know? So, I don't know. I don't know how else to feel. We're going into 2026 now. And, I don't know. I feel like we've done a lot of work. I feel like the president has made a big impact in the world, in the universe. And I think that we're off to a really great year next year. I do. But I'm not going to forget what we had to go through to get here. And I'm not going to put down the work that, I picked up, the workload that I carry on to the next year. I'm not going to leave it behind in 2025. I think, you know, with the next year in mind, I think we should all pitch in to do more, to do the most, to make a big impact, because let's hand it to him. This year was the year of Donald J. Trump, and next year is going to be the year of the brotherhood. We got to. This year, easily, second term president Donald J. Trump's here. But next year, we gotta take next year by the horns. You know? But I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe because we need more subscribers. That way we build this community. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure to. Like I said, because there's so much more that we could do with more of you guys around. And I really want to see that. I really want to see that happen. So give it a like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. My Sunday Front. Bye bye.